He really did, and everybody knows what I'm talking about in Cardiff, I'll tell you now. And I was out actually at the front, and he got a phone call on his HLC phone. At the time, they were experimenting with pig valves in human hearts. And he had a question from a doctor saying, is it feasible for us, because we haven't got valves that we think can do the job here, but we're experimenting with pig tissue, not saying that we will. Have you, in principle, have you got any objection to us inserting a pig valve into this man's heart? And he thought about it, and his question back was, ask him if he eats bacon. And he said, yeah. He said, okay, you can have a pig's heart. And I said, well, why do you ask if he eats bacon? Well, if he eats bacon, he ain't worry about bacon in his heart. Now, that exposes what that actually is. Yeah. So, anyway, getting back to my son. We fully expected support. My boy is at a nosebleed for 4 days. And he's in serious, serious trouble. We made the doctors aware quite quickly that he was a Jehovah's Witness, and they really had major problems in trying to stop this nosebleed. Now, we called out the HLC, and the first response was, well, if it's a nosebleed, I'm going to Rome, find someone else, because I'm not coming over just for the sake of a nosebleed. And I said, well, really, you know, this has been going on for 4 days, and the doctors want someone here because they've got drugs that they can use to try and help with the clotting here, because where they've reduced the volume of his blood, it's difficult to get it to clot now. They're keeping the volume up, but they're not. He's losing a lot of the goodness out of his blood. And that was that reaction. I'm going to Rome, find someone else. Anyway, eventually we got somebody over, and they just stood around and they just got in the way. And they're checking. Hang on a minute, we might have to phone up New York. And the doctors are saying, this boy's dying. This boy's dying. His blood's at 6.7. If we're going to operate, we're going to have to do it quickly. And I could see this had gone on from the Thursday night. It's about dinner time on the Friday afternoon. They're all over the place. We got people getting in the way, interfering, not knowing what they're talking about. And you can tell the doctors are irritated.
Yes.
Talk to me on my level, but don't tell me what to do when you don't know what you're talking about. And I could see it. And I could see, because of the conferences they were having, they were about to say, right, that's it. We can't do any more. They won't allow us to do any more. And as luck would have it, this particular doctor went into a side ward, and I said, right, the bottom line is dead simple. My boy does not die. He says, are you telling me to give him blood? I said, yeah, I'm telling you to give him whatever it needs to keep him alive. He said, well, I can't, because he'll sue me. He'll sue me for assault. I said, well, is my boy in any state to make any decisions? And they said, well, he's got 1 or 2 drugs that are making him relaxed, and he doesn't really know where he is. I said, I'm his father, I take authority, you deal with me. And I signed a form, a disclaimer. I went in and threw them out, you know, get out my way, get out these people's way. And then they took him down, operated on him. And what it actually was, it wasn't a nosebleed. He had an aneurysm in his soft palate.
Right.
And the blood was pouring down his throat. He was drowning on his own blood. But if I hadn't have got them out of the way, they would never have got him into a theatre. But I got to say, the doctors at the Heath Hospital in Cardiff, they got 2 real clever specialists in. They got an operating theatre open that had been shut for the weekend, and they saved my boy. When he came back on the ward that night, his blood was about 3.2. And the doctor said, well, look, he's alive. He hasn't died today, but his blood, his organs could pack in. And one of the things they did was pack his nasal passage. They packed from the back and they packed from the front. And they said, we can only leave that there till Monday. So he might still die on Monday.
I've been told today. It was lower than that. It was 2.3, not 3.2.
It got down a bit lower than that,
yeah. It did, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, he was back on the ward. He was alive. The bleeding was stopped. And me and Lynn, well, we just went home. I've never sobbed like it. I mean, you talk about trauma. I mean, to see your boy and see medics that can stop your boy dying being prevented to go near him, and having to step in that manner and take control of it like that, I never thought I'd have to do it. It was horror. It was pure horror. And actually, we're coming up to the 4th or 5th anniversary. That was the 31st of October a few years ago.
Right.
So, I mean, even now I cringe. But, I mean, that was followed up by... we went to the meeting on Sunday, because at the time we were very good girls, a very good boy and girl, me and the wife. Went to the meeting, and we were greeted by an elder's wife that said, wouldn't it be marvellous if he died? Imagine the headline, 19-year-old boy dies for his faith. I mean, I can't describe how I felt or how I feel. And then another one, because they get very iffy about these type of things. They don't like it, you see. And my boy just had a simple aneurysm, but someone had to spread a rumour, because he's a good rugby player, Jason. He's a good rugby player. Someone spread the rumour that he had scored a try, and he had been driven face first into the ground when he scored, and so it was his own fault, all his own fault. Shouldn't have been playing rugby. But yeah, and then that was followed up then by another elder that I phoned. He said, well, why didn't he take blood? I said, well, hang on a minute. He says, no, just tell him he panicked. He said, all elders know that. He said, if you get in a situation where you need blood, panic and have blood and deal with it afterwards. So we'd gone through all of that for nothing. Because everybody afterwards said, well, I would have taken blood. He got more guts than me, you know. I'd have taken blood. Amazing.
So how did that make you feel? I mean, both the going through that and then the aftermath of it. Was that it with you and the Watchtower Society?
No. I mean, because I had nowhere to go. I mean, one of the things that when I watched the video of you and Peter that rang a bell with me was identity. My identity now was a witness. I had nowhere to go. And actually, one of the elders actually cottoned on to the fact that I was getting fed up. And he quoted that passage of scripture to me. Where are you going to go, Dave? It's a desert out there, mate. Can't go out there. Nothing there, mate. So no. But what it did do is that feeling again that Peter just mentioned again about brothers together. Those brothers weren't for me. They were against me.
Right.
Those brothers would have gleefully watched my boy die.
Yeah.
And on that occasion, those brothers were in my face. And I was an enemy of theirs.
Right.
Because I wouldn't follow what they wanted to do. So I wasn't part of the brotherhood anymore. Still Bible based, still a Christian man. But I was no longer part of that brotherhood. And that really was the start of saying, right, okay, what else are they up to?
You went through some similar traumas, didn't you, in a way? And certainly blood became an issue for you as well.
Well, it did, thankfully, not with either of our children.
Yeah, that's right.
I look back on it now and I just wonder, as Dave's talking, what our reaction, how we would have reacted. It's frightening to think that we might have taken the decision to let our children die, but it, praise God, was never an issue. But we did have experience of very, very close friends within the witnesses, one of whom had died in childbirth, giving birth to her daughters.
Yeah.
And that was terribly traumatic because it's very close friends, and the people in the hospital actually had to have counselling following that because they had to stand back and let this girl die. And it wasn't until many years later, in fact only about 3 years ago, that I realised that one of the members of the congregation that we were associated with in Devon was the anaesthetist on duty that night. And he said virtually he's sort of still having almost nightmares from that time. And it is a terrible, terrible thing. I think the worst, because you know that part of me thinks, isn't it good that somebody's prepared to die for their faith? God, but what a waste when it's based on the wrong understanding of Scripture. We've got Christians today laying down their lives for the Lord, but it's based on the right understanding of their relationship with God. But this is not about their relationship with God. This is about their relationship with an organisation. It's the organisation that dictates the policy.
That's a very good point. Very good point indeed. Because yes, there are people serving God who in that service lay down their lives. But it is not a choice, I will die, I won't take blood. And of course, what I think I find so difficult in this is that the organisation will say, God forbids blood transfusions. And yet, I have yet to find anything. I know the scriptures they use, but I have yet to find anything from Genesis to Revelation that says God forbids blood transfusion and forbids you to seek to live as a result of it. And that, I think, to me becomes where God's name is being drawn into this.
Yes, it is.
When it's not there.
Yes, I think the issue of fear comes into this as well. Because if then you do take a blood transfusion or that you agree to somebody else in your family having one, what they're saying is effectively, with the organisation, not necessarily the local congregation, but the organisation would say that you are putting your eternal welfare in jeopardy.
Absolutely.
And if you die having received still a blood transfusion and you die, the chances are you probably won't be resurrected.